To the son who carries my name proudly, and the daughter who just carries my disappointment. The dining room erupted in forced laughter the second my father finished his toast. Crystal clinked. My brother Caleb grinned like he'd been handed another trophy. My mother's smile froze solid. And me? I raised my glass, met my father's eyes, and answered, funny. I just signed a lease 3,000 miles away. Plenty of room for disappointment there. You could have heard a napkin drop. That was the night the mask finally cracked, but it wasn't the night the real story began. The real story started months earlier, buried in a folder I was never meant to find. I'm Elise. I grew up in a tidy brick house outside Charlotte where the azaleas bloomed on schedule and the neighbors thought we were perfect. Upstairs, Caleb's lacrosse sticks hung like museum pieces. Downstairs, in the garage that smelled of oil and possibility, I rebuilt engines, rewired drones, and taught myself code on a second-hand laptop. Machines never compared me to my brother. They only asked that I understand them. Dad's love had a spotlight, and it only pointed in one direction. When Caleb made varsity, Dad shut the garage door so the whole block could hear him cheer. When I won the state STEM competition at 16, he patted my shoulder and said, "That's great, kiddo. Just don't rub it in your brother's face." Mom's specialty was looking away at exactly the right moment. She perfected the art of stirring soup that was already perfect. The only person who ever saw me was my grandfather, Pops. He'd shuffle into the garage with black coffee and stories about fixing bombers in the war. "You've got magic in those hands, Elise," he'd say. "Don't waste it trying to be somebody else's footnote." I left for California the week I turned 18. Full ride scholarship, 2 duffel bags, 0 goodbye party. Dad grunted, long way to go for a piece of paper. I went anyway. I learned that distance doesn't fix people who refuse to turn around. Thanksgiving rolled back around. I flew home because Pops begged me. One last family dinner before his heart gave out, he said. I should have known better. Dad's toast was the match. My reply was the gasoline. I walked out while the turkey was still steaming. No one followed. 2 days later I sat in Pop's little apartment that smelled of cedar and pipe smoke. He was thinner, oxygen tubes in his nose, but his eyes were sharp. We drank coffee from chipped mugs while he dozed. That's when I saw the manila folder on his desk marked Trust, Harold J. Reed. My father's handwriting. Inside were decades of statements. Pop's savings, drained year after year, funneled into Caleb's travel teams, private coaches, a down payment on his starter home, even the venue for his over-the-top wedding. Every zero taken had a note in Dad's handwriting for Caleb's future. My name never appeared once. Not even the 10 grand Pops had quietly set aside for my college gone. Pops woke up, saw my face, and knew. I didn't want you kids fighting, he whispered. Your father said it was temporary. It never was. Something inside me went very still. I flew back to San Francisco and built a life that didn't need their permission. New city, new friends, a long reclaimed oak table I sanded myself. On Christmas Eve, I hosted 12 people who actually wanted to be there. We laughed until 2 in the morning. Someone snapped a photo, me in the center, cheeks flushed, surrounded by light and chosen family. It went viral in the family group chat I'd never left. 3 days later, my father called, furious. Do you know what you've done? Half the church thinks we threw you out. Fix this. I laughed for the first time in years. No. He showed up in San Francisco anyway, Mom trailing behind like a ghost. I seated them at my oak table, no head, no foot. 3 equal chairs. Dad's eyes kept drifting to the single empty seat where Caleb should have been. He never came. Over lasagna, I laid the folder on the table between us. Statements fanned out like evidence in a trial. Dad went white. Mom started crying. I didn't raise my voice. You taught me I was disposable, I said. Turns out the only thing you ever invested in was keeping one child shining so bright the other disappeared. Congratulations. It worked. Silence stretched so thin I could hear the bay foghorn miles away. Dad's hands shook. I thought if Caleb succeeded, the family succeeded. And I was the spare, I finished. He looked at me then, really looked, for the first time I could remember. I was wrong, he said, voice cracking like thin ice. I don't know how to fix 26 years in one night. You start, I said, By sitting at a table where nobody has to earn the right to exist. He stayed 3 days. No lectures, no defenses. He helped me install bookshelves. He asked about my job. On the last night, he stood on my balcony, hands in his pockets, and said, "I'm proud of you, Elise." I just never knew how to say it without moving the spotlight. It wasn't absolution. It was a beginning. Pops passed in February. At the funeral, Dad reached for my hand during the eulogy and didn't let go. Caleb stood on the other side of the casket, staring at the ground. Afterward, Dad handed me a check. Every dollar he'd taken from Pops, plus interest. "It's yours," he said. Always was. I tore it up in front of him. "Keep it," I told him. "Build a bigger table. One that seats everyone. Or don't." But I'm done waiting for scraps. I still live in San Francisco. My oak table now has 14 chairs. Sometimes Dad flies out. He sits wherever there's room. He listens more than he talks. Mom sends cards with real sentences in them now, not just "love you." Some nights I light a candle for Pops and whisper "thank you." He taught me the most dangerous thing a forgotten child can do isn't scream. It's build. And when you build something strong enough, beautiful enough, alive,